So in this exercise, there's not a lot of activity, but there's a pretty good amount of theory, so we want to talk about it a little bit. Here we have a county, Hamstead County, ordering a computer near the end of the year. And so the question is, how do you handle the ordering of a computer? You didn't get the computer yet, you don't owe for the computer yet, you haven't paid for the computer, you just place an order near year end. And at the end of the year, they agree to pay for the computer in the subsequent year, which is an exception. Most of the time it has to happen within the year or within just a few days of the next year. Sometimes there's a little leeway of 30 to 60 days where you can pay for something that you encumbered in the prior year, and each governmental unit would have their own rules about that spillover from a prior year. But what they're asking about here is if you have a government-wide financial statement versus a fund financial statement, which is the set of funds, how will this purchase order be reported? So in a fund financial statement, which is the activity in each of the funds, which is basically a modified cash basis, in that there's receivables and payables which have to be settled within just a few weeks after year end, 30 to 60 days typically, depending on the governmental unit and their rules. Those entries and those financial statements are very different than government-wide. Government-wide financial statements are more accrual basis that you're familiar with. And so nonprofit government agencies have to report both ways, both the individual funds, and then they have to do a reconciliation between the funds and the government-wide, and that reconciliation can be pages long, where you actually have to take assets and put them on the balance sheet and remove them from expenditures and the fund balance and so forth. It's very involved. And we're not going to get into that except for the fact that it exists. But then let's go back to this particular situation. So what entry would be made? So you would probably make something similar to this: encumbrances control, and reserve for encumbrances in your fund balance. So you're setting aside part of your budget for this computer. And then at the year end, the highest decision-making authority has approved it to be paid in the next year. So in your fund balance, which part are you going to report that in given the highest decision-making authority? What do you think? So in the fund financial statements, you would have fund balance committed. So these are special terms that you're learning now. It is not a donor restricted amount, but a decision made within the governmental unit. And so that's fund financial statements. What about government-wide financial statements? Do we record a purchase order in a typical accrual basis financial statement? We do not. So in the government-wide financial statement, there's no liability because you haven't received the item yet. There would be nothing reported in the government-wide with respect to this computer. All right, so this just highlighted the difference, or made a contrast difference between the fund financial statements, the financial statements that show the activity in each of the separate funds, and the government-wide, which is a consolidation of all the funds converted to the accrual basis. All right, keep going.